Welcome to this week's NORA Startup webinar. Today, we're going to talk about startup experiences and how to approach research environments. In this week's NORA Startup webinar, you will meet two startups. You will meet the Tromsø-based Keenious and the Fornebu-based Future Ready. Keenious provides a tool for document and writing analysis, making online research much more effortless and tolerable. And of course, that is all we researchers want. Future Ready applies real-time data and uses artificial intelligence and behavioral science to develop learning tools for organizational culture that promotes learning and innovation. Explicitly, they help sales employees improve their everyday job setting skills. As usual, you will hear from the two about their experiences and building on AI startups in Norway and pitfalls to avoid. We will also learn from their experience in getting in touch with universities and research institutions and how to get about in this dialogue. Me, who is from a research institute, is on the other side, and I'll be eager to learn about these problems they have. The webinar ends in a plenary discussion on shared interests, challenges, and possibilities, and how we might get even better at helping each other in this field. My name is Morten Gudvin, and I'm a professor in computer science working on artificial intelligence from the University of Agder. And today we have with us Frode Oppedal from Keenious and Anders Rapp from Keenious. We have with us Alexander Berry from Future Ready and Lars Kohlflot from Future Ready. Frode and Alexander are the ones that will give presentations. Key to this talk is you, the audience. You will have questions. Whenever you have questions, please provide them in the chat or in the Q&A. And after we've heard these presentations in the beginning, the floor is open for all types of questions. So primarily, this is for you, the audience, to get insight on how to actually approach these big research institutions that might be so hard to get on. We will start on by getting Frode from Keenious give a short introduction. So Frode, how would you like to approach the research communities? And I think, Alexander, if you turn off your camera while we listen to Frode, it will be good.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me to this event. This talk is always interesting to discuss AI, startups, and all that, because that's mainly what my life has been about the last few years. So always interesting to get new ideas and points to look into there. I think I'll just jump right into my presentation because I've been given 10 minutes and I got some things I want to talk about here. So if I just share my screen, let's see. Everyone should be able to see this now, hopefully. And I got my presentation here. If not, you gotta yell out. Okay, so quickly, I want to talk about who we are and what we do. First off, I want to talk about the problem we're trying to solve. And we see it as there's three big problems with today's search engines. The first one is that it's overly complex and they're very cumbersome to use. That is, in a sense, like maybe we're talking to right now more of a senior group of people that have been using these kind of search engines for years. But if you talk to students that come straight out of high school, people that maybe are not as technically adept, they don't really understand sometimes how these search tools are to be used, even though it's just a text box and you to input some text, but it's still very complicated. Many people usually have low domain knowledge about the subject they're researching, which means that it's difficult to know what to search for. So if you don't really understand it, like you're a student and you just got into a new field and you're going to be researching things, like how do you even know what to search for if you never even heard about the field just a few months ago? And there's just an overwhelming amount of information that is available online, and it just keeps growing every year. I think the number is about 4 to 5% increase of all the published literature every year. So that's in the millions. every year that just gets published more data. So we need ways to kind of solve this, and that's kind of what Keenious is trying to do. What we say we do, we make researching online easy. So in short, Keenious is a tool that automatically finds highly relevant research articles by analyzing a document's text and displays the results right next to the document. So to showcase this, I just want to show a quick demo of Keenious. So Keenious is a tool that you can install to Word. It's available now. Everyone can test it out. And we are commercially launching in just a few months. When you install Keenious, you can do it from Word or Google Docs soon. You get a button up here that says Keenious. You then get our sidebar. And in this example, we have a text about the Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement. And let's say you're a student and you want to find more research articles about this. That's when you have the sidebar, you just click the button and we will analyze your text with our AI models and everything and do an index lookup and try to find research articles that we think are relevant to your specific text. So here you see we got really quickly up text about Kyoto Protocol. We can read the abstract for it. We got information, we got links, and we can even find similar articles to this. And we also just released this week a new feature that is makes it possible to filter on topics, so you can go even further deeper into things that you're interested in. So here we could, for instance, it's detected that Kyoto Protocol is one of the top most things there. You could do a quick search on that, and now you're making sure that you only get things that are about Kyoto Protocol. But you could go even further, and let's say joint implementation is one that's even deeper in that. And now we're getting even more specific into the things we want. Other types of things you can do is, for instance, we have a focus search, which is you've gotten feedback on, for instance, let's say clean development mechanism, and you want to find out more about this, or you're reading someone else's paper. You just select a piece of text, and you now see it becomes a focus button. You click that, and our algorithms will now focus more heavily on what's specified in this piece of text. So you can see now we get text about the clean development mechanism, which we've detected. And it would be one of the top suggested topics. One cool trick, since we're talking about AI, what I found is really cool of this, we can actually search for artificial intelligence here. See, there's 4 million papers about artificial intelligence. And if we actually search for that and filter on that, we actually do a search on AI, but it's still in the top, looking for the space we're in. So the Kyoto Protocol and global warming. And now you can see we can get AI papers about like development of a decision support model based on machine learning for applying greenhouse gas reduction technology. And basically greenhouse gas emission prediction on road network using deep sequence learning. So it's actually very interesting because you can almost take any type of topic. I took one text, which is like a black hole piece of text on astronomy, I mean, and you say artificial intelligence, and suddenly you find like predictions of black holes, predictions of galaxies. It's really fun actually to try and play around just putting AI into any type of topic because there's so much cool stuff there now. So that's an interesting thing. If you're researching AI, this could actually be a really cool thing to just see like, okay, what have people done on something that would be kind of difficult to search on before, right? Because you don't really know it. So yeah, that's quickly the demo of the product. To go back to my presentation, want to kind of summarize what we think Keenious is. We don't see it really as a replacement for like existing search tools. We're not coming in here and saying, okay, you should drop Google Scholar, Scopus, all of these other tools you've been used to using. This is more of a supplement to existing methods when you maybe been using these types of tools and you kind of feel confident that you found what you searched for is right. You can always go in on Keenious, click one button and see what comes up. And it's actually, we've been testing it the last few weeks with the new version we're running. And it's really interesting seeing like professors and researchers that said they've been researching something for weeks, and then they use ours, and in 5 minutes, they say they found a bunch of papers that they never knew what existed, and they feel they should have gotten in. So it's really, really great that you don't have to kind of relearn everything you're doing. You can just try to use this and it works right away. We also try to make it extremely easy to use because we're kind of designing it specifically for like the first year student that doesn't know how to even do research, doesn't know what a research paper is. And we want to help those kind of explore research more, and maybe hopefully they get more interested in it because it's more accessible to them. And we're thinking of it as, it's a new tool both for students and researchers. And we've seen like people are using it differently depending on who you talk to and what kind of knowledge level they have. And we're hoping that we can kind of catch everyone, but of course that's a very challenging problem to solve. Since we're in AI, I'll quickly go through the technology. We're building from a data set from Microsoft Academic, which is extremely powerful corpus of text and data set we can use. So we don't have to actually source and do any kind of crawling ourselves. So this is a really great corpus. And I suggest if you're trying to do NLP work, try to get access of this this corpus. You can apply for it, and they can give it to you if they see they have good enough reason, I assume. Stuff that we like AI models that we've been training on it are Word2Vec, Doc2Vec. LDA was like one of the first things we did. We're now playing around with BERT and Pegasus, and we're going to be trying to put in a lot more advanced understanding of the text to maybe do text generation, text summarization, to really understand and maybe make heat maps of where things are interesting in your paper compared to other ones. But basically what we do, very simply, we analyze your text compared to an index of the 60 million research papers we have, and we do a really quick like comparison lookup or similarity search with cosine similarity. And that's very basic. Like that's usually how almost all these kind of search engine work. And we're not really doing anything crazy in that level. Short about our history, started in 2017. Right after I finished my master's in computer science, had this project I was working on, applied and got funding in 2018 from the Norwegian Research Council. That gave us enough money to work on it for a year. We applied and got funding in 2019 from the EU, SME Instrument Phase 1. And now in 2020, we got a big project and we got investors on board. So we're doing an innovation contract with Innovation Norway and the University of Tromsø. And we also got on board some great investors that really believe in us. And our plan now for 2021 is to kind of expand internationally, because we're looking at this as a product that's international. We're focusing on English, and Norway is great, but it's such a small market compared to the rest of the world. So we're just trying to get out there as quick as possible. But you can see we kind of grown the team. What's interesting here is we only have one machine learning engineer, but I kind of go in and work on AI as well. But we've been focusing actually extremely a lot on like UX. You see, we have one dedicated UX researcher. We have business development, sales. This is what we realized over the years, is that it doesn't help if you have really cool technology. You still need people that's dedicated to try and get it into the hands of people. And you need sales for that. And it's also very complicated and a lot of work trying to sell a high-tech product like this, or search, where you kind of are you have to figure out the value offering right away or on your own basically and try to sell that. Since we're talking about how to work with universities and academic institutions, quickly about our project. It's going from April 2020 to October this year. The goal of it is to develop kind of full-fledged product. When we started out, we kind of had this MVP. Since then, we've done a lot of work. And UIT, which is the University of Tromsø, has the role of a demanding pilot customer. So they're really coming and giving us feedback. They're really saying like, we need this, we want this. And when they test things out, we didn't like that. And we're basically doing lots of tests on the students and researchers. And it really helps getting this unique competence from them to kind of build the product they'll be using, because universities, as we see it, are very transferable. They're very homogeneous in what problems they're trying to solve. Like they're all doing research on most things. Of course, you have specializations, but yeah, this is really useful. So far, we've done a lot of cool workshops. We learned a lot from it. Based on that, we got in the new version that just launched. And I think one of the best things about the project is that we actually kind of have an in on the potential customer, where we can be asking them more questions that a normal customer maybe wouldn't be answering. Like, okay, how do you make your decisions when you buy something? Like, what are you actually looking at? And that's kind of giving us very good key insights, which if we didn't have a partnership with them, they probably wouldn't have been answering. And of course, doing these types of projects, you get a lot of national and international interest, which we've been able to leverage for PR. And then when we then contact the university, they can Google us and they see that we're partnering up. And we also have gotten TV coverage and things like that. So when we contact them, sometimes they say they've seen us on TV or read about us in the news. Like we did specifically go out for Chrono, which is the academic paper, newspaper, and that's been very successful. I know I'm kind of going over time here. How much time do I have left? This is the last slide.
Yeah. Present your last slide and then we'll.
Yeah. So learnings over the past year, it shouldn't come as a surprise, but making a scalable and reliable search engine cloud architecture is hard. We've been going over now for Kubernetes. We're using Elasticsearch. It's a lot of stuff to make sure that this is running when you're just a few developers. But with the advances in these type of open source tooling, you can actually run like huge clusters with just a few people that is automated. It's very important when you're talking about your product is that you're talking about the right things. You shouldn't really be like, when you're talking to academics, they don't really care about your AI tool. They just really care about what the value is. So what they get out of it. And it's cool and all having the cool technology, but not everybody understands it. And usually we try to refrain from talking about it and keep it like on the down low unless they specifically ask about it. So that kind of goes into the third point. Yeah. So talk about the use cases. Like we focus so much on the product and the technology is kind of like, if they don't ask about it, that's good. Then we save that more for the investors and more for like people that really want to go in depth. And we did focus on hiring a lot, and especially getting another machine learning engineer was like one of the biggest issues and the efforts we put in here. And since we're small, we see that I would say it's more important to find someone that has a lot of engineering qualities as well. Like for instance, our machine learning engineer is working like Kubernetes. He's deploying his own stuff. He's doing all of this, setting up databases, and not just working on the models. So more like an engineer and less like a data scientist, especially since we're so small. Like it doesn't help if your model is 10% better if it's not running, right? And of course, you got to talk to your users, which we've seen so much help in doing, because then you don't start building things they don't need and putting a lot of effort into some kind of AI tool that like they wouldn't notice you put in. So yeah, that's kind of super quick. Thank you for me. That I try to keep it short. It's a lot more to talk about, but yeah, that's kind of.
And we will discuss all of it in the panel debate, of course. So thank you, Frode. Of course, as a technologist, it makes me this increases the curiosity of how things are working. So can you, for example, is it possible to show what Keenious has interpreted from the text? Is that something that is useful?
So it is possible, and we are actually gotten feedback from researchers. They're extremely interested in knowing why certain results come up. And we've been working towards that, where, for instance, you can see the suggestions. That kind of gives you an idea, at least what we're looking at. But we are going to make it so you can actually go in each result and see the top keywords and see the actual scoring values. Because we'll try to make it a little bit hidden, so because not everybody needs to see that. But if you really want to, you should be able to understand why the result comes up. Because of we're trying to not be a black box, because that doesn't really go hand in hand with academic research in our mind.
Good. So we got a lot more questions, but we'll keep that from the panel, I think, and we'll head over to Alexander, who are going to talk about Future Ready. So your presentation, we're ready for you, and then we'll include Frode back again. Then we have the panel discussion.
Okay. So thank you very much for this.
Turn off your camera, Frode. Sorry, Alexander, please.
Well, you can all see my screen, and just let me know if you can't hear me. So thank you very much for inviting us to talk a little bit about our startup journey, some of the learnings and failings that we've had along the way. So Future Ready was started in 2019, and we started off like every other startup with a vague idea of what we wanted to do, but quickly honed in on the idea of sales based on my co-founder Lars' experience. So what we're building now is the first step of our rocket ship, which is the smart training platform. And really what we want to do is we want to work with companies within sort of the finance space, with the media and telecom, and we really want to help them to improve their outbound sales and customer service. Let me see. Oh, sorry. So the problem that we're solving is that we see sales very much as a black box. When you talk to salespeople, you hear very often that they have a very high turnover, that they think there's a certain gene or a certain personality for people who succeed in sales. So what we wanted to find out and where we wanted to use technology is really to try to understand what leads to a sale. How can we optimize and increase the efficiency? And what can we learn from the top performers? So if it is true that we have someone who is so much better than everyone else, what is it that they're doing? And can we share that learning? We also realized that there are another host of challenges and difficulties within the area of sales. And this is not only related to call centers, but just in general with sales, because it's very frustrating to be working either on the phone or in meetings, or as we all do today because of the pandemic, over Zoom and Skype and Google Meet and everything else, and you're not getting anywhere. So there's a very, very high turnover. And people struggle with their motivation, and the onboarding is difficult. So we thought that the first problem we need to tackle is to ensure that they get the right type of coaching. So what we did is that we used technology to build what we call a voice bot. It's essentially technology that we're building on is really chatbot technology. In this very first stage, we call this immersive learning, and it takes the sales rep through a number of different scenarios where it could be linked towards a particular project or campaign, as they often call it. And here you see an example of a script, and the person or the sales rep would actually be reading out this script, and we would get them feedback on what they're saying and how they're saying it. And we think this type of immersive learning is a very good way of making sure that they learn the right type of skills that they need, that they can practice and get ready for new campaigns, that they can practice techniques, which is very, very often a challenge as well. So how do you handle an objection? How do you actually start a conversation? Now that I'm going to go on to a new project with a totally new customer and a new campaign, what am I supposed to say? How do I do that? So we built a system for that. Now, like I mentioned, this voice bot is, of course, coaching at scale. So it's easy to do this for 5, 10, 30. But we also want to make sure that all of the rich information and the data that we collect through the CRM system and through the voice calls, that we can use that insight to drive better outcomes. So we enable them to sell more. So we're looking at here at the next project that we're going into now, with both prediction and optimization of the sales calls. Now, we've all along, we've known that the technology, if it was optimal, it would be awesome. We are realistic, and we understand that we don't have all of the technology available perfect today. So we've been focused at a very early stage on connecting with the best research institutes in Norway, and we were lucky enough to be part of the similar garage. So the first thing that we did when it came to connecting with the research communities was to generally hang out around the coffee machine and talk to the researchers. And that also was very, very, very important for us, because that's where we found our CTO. And by talking to him, getting him interested in what we were doing, he eventually ended up being our CTO. So that was our sort of first foray into the research. And that's because we deliberately planned on connecting to the researcher and seeing what they could do to help us, so that we could be working on a product that we could launch and use among customers, get feedback on, but then work on the more advanced technology. So what we did after about 6 months was that we applied for the Regional Research Fund. They had some calls for proposals. In Norwegian, it's called for region, but we used that as a springboard to really get to know our research partner. We used a different section of Simula Met in this project. Together with them, we set up some very clear project goals, which I do think is very important if you want to build strong research collaborations. And we invited them in to help us form the research as well. But the whole purpose of one of these, I was going to call it a starting grant, but this research research money, is that you really get, as a company, get an experience of what it's like to work with research and researchers. But it's very important to have very clear project goals in this. If not, I don't think you will get as much out of it as you can. This spurred us on to apply for what's called a qualification project, or kvalifikeringsproject in Norwegian. And there we set an even more ambitious goal. And that project we were awarded just before Christmas, and we started that now on the 1st of February. We continued our collaboration with Simula Met and Michael Riegler, who we'll be working with. And we have Michael Riegler, and we'll be working with one of his PhDs as well. So our goal now is to work on how we can then predict sales. Now, it's great to be a startup in Norway. Not only do you have Innovation Norway, but you also have a number of opportunities to both connect with research institutions, but also to apply to the Norwegian Research Council. So our recommendation is that you do that, and that you start talking to both researchers and institutions, and even the Research Council at a quite early age, even if you don't have a very clear idea about what it is that you want to do yet. So now in April, there's a new call coming out for it's innovation for businesses. That's through the Norwegian Research Council. That's a 2 to 4 year project. And we are planning on applying there as well. The difference there is that we'll add more research partners, and it will be a bigger project. But we do think that when you're dealing with technology, and it's not like in the US where you get millions and millions, we do think that it's a great way of building the technology core and making sure that you're getting as good technology as possible by connecting with some of the best researchers out there. Some of the challenges that we have is, of course, ensuring that you get the funding. So make sure you write really good applications, involve your research partner at an early stage, use their experience of writing applications, because that is important. And make sure as the project goes that you have very clear project goals and that you track your progress and make sure that both parties are both happy. For us, of course, it's about moving towards a product. For the research, it's very often about what can they use both here in terms of learning, what can they use here in terms of possible publications. So that's a little bit about our experience. And to sum up, so, as an AI startup here in Norway, we do think that it's really, really important, starting from scratch. It's about having a really good idea. Find yourself a co-founder. Don't do this on your own. That's very, very important. Get yourself into an incubator or a garage. We were lucky enough to get into the Simula garage. And Simula Invest, which is also part of the Simula, ended up investing in us. Work as methodically as you can we focus very much on disciplined entrepreneurship. We work through our value proposition canvas. And in addition, we also use startup coaches, which has been very, very valuable to us. Of course, we spent a lot of time raising funds as well. That's important, but don't get lost in the fundraising, and also see the research as part of that journey, that you can use the soft funding, both from Innovation Norway and from the Research Council, to help you set you up for success. Be a little bit wary though with the research, because when you talk to investors, they may think that you're going too far into the research. So very often in the conversations with investors, we would talk about research as more for development. We got this development track and we're working with such and such institution. And since you're building a rocket ship, build for the future. It takes quite a lot of time. I can't believe that we only started in 2019. It seems both like really long time ago, but it hasn't really been, and our journey has just barely started. We're within startup speak is called in stealth mode now, which means that we are launching for our customers now. Those are some of the lessons learned by Future Ready. I mean, this is of course not exhaustive. We've got many other stories, but please do reach out and ask questions either today or after today. So Morten, that's it for me.
Great, thank you. That was an interesting story. The first question that arises for me is, you talked about alignment between your company and SimulaMet, who you collaborate with. How do you ensure that alignment? Is that something that you strategically think about, or is it something that you talk around the coffee table as you?
That's a really good question. Thank you. In our instance, it was strategic. So with SimulaMet, we had this what we call a voice bot, which is essentially a chatbot. And we asked around, and we were told that at SimulaMet they were already thinking along the same line. So that started off that conversation. And based on those initial discussions, we found that if we applied for funding, that would be one way of making sure that they could join. Because unless you get the funding, the research funding, it's difficult for them to take part, because it needs to come to the institution. So that's just something to be aware of. So that's where it was. It was a strategic alignment.
That is interesting to hear. So let's welcome the other panelists back, Frode and Lars and Anders. So I'd like to just thank you for your collaboration, and I'll start with asking Keenious, and I'll ask the same question for Future Ready. But the question I would like to ask is, if I were a startup company who would like to get into the research environment in some way. So let's say I have an idea, or maybe I even have a company. So what would be the strategy, you think? So is there a point of having a strategy, or should you just go to the coffee machine? Or Frode, what do you think? Or maybe Lars, whoever wants to.
I can try to answer that. Our story is maybe a little bit different because it comes from work I did on my master's thesis, and then I kind of converted that over to a product, and then over time it kind of has just been growing. So it wasn't me coming up with an idea and then trying to find someone that could be able to kind of execute it together with me. It was more of, okay, I need just resources and time, and then I can kind of develop the prototype myself. And that's maybe where I worked on it. I made a prototype that I knew I could be able to do on my own, but I knew it kind of needed to be better to actually be commercial. So, but that was enough to get funding, which led us to be able to hire a specific like AI engineer, and then put in more of the resources required afterwards. So if you have I kind of had the skill set to build a prototype first.
Is it the same professor it does? Is it the same professor that you're collaborating with now that also you collaborated with under your master thesis?
So that's kind of how we managed to get into the university, also get a project, because we're came from the master's there, and then we did. I started the startup, and we got the student from the Norwegian Research Council, and that was in partnership with UIT. So, and that was with the same kind of people that I've been working with during my master's, so they knew about me already. So it was kind of leveraging, I guess, the network I already had built from the institution, and then kind of, well, now I am known in the computer science institution. Okay, how can we leverage that to get into the library, and how can we get to the administration, and kind of growing it from there. And I guess you kind of have to showcase how it goes, and you kind of get higher and higher the more you're able to show, right?
Exactly. So you kind of built out of your education. That's how it came. But for future ready, I think it was different.
Maybe
so
I can try to.
So maybe Lars. So what advice would you give me as a startup if I want to reach my research environment?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, because I think as a startup, I think like a startup, some people think that you have a good idea and then you have some money and you can just get started. But to run a startup it is a long journey, and it's a tough journey, and there's a lot of things that you need to be prepared for to take this journey. And what I strongly advise people to do is to participate in an accelerator program, where you actually what we did is that we joined something called Pangstart in Halden. It's a 6 weeks program which is sponsored by Innovation Norway, and where you have 1 day a week where you actually go through all the steps in the lean canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And you also follow the steps from the distributed entrepreneurship, the book that Alexander referred to. And then you, after these 6 weeks, you build up, the whole business model, and you are together with 10 other startups that has been selected, and all kind of doing the same thing. So then you have a community around you, and you learn a lot. I mean, that was really, really, really tough 6 weeks, and I was really exhausted afterwards, but I learned so much. And still today, which is several years after, it feels like I still use the same tools today, and I always look back to the time we learned, because you tend to repeat yourself. You're doing the same steps over and over and over, and then by being through all the steps in 6 weeks, you kind of have the whole overview when you get started. So my advice is, this is one thing, is to be part of this Pangstart program, and another thing is to be part of an incubator, as we have been very lucky to be part of the Simula Garage, where we actually they've been super generous to give us a workplace, so we actually have a desk to go to every day, and we have environment around us. So I think this combination of having this Pangstart in Halden, and also to be part of this community in Fornebu, has been extremely valuable for us. And we were so lucky, like every year they take in quite a lot of startups, and then they select some few startups that is going to the part of the incubator, where you actually been giving a mentor who follow you. So we have been giving now mentor that follow us every week. So now we have one mentor is the CTO from eSmart Systems in Halden, and he's with us 1.5 hour every week to give us strategic advice. He built a startup from zero to be worth several billions. So he has a lot of experience. So he shares his experience with us, and is very generous. And we also have we also have other mentors helping us on the way. So this has been very, very useful for us, because that's it kind of help us also to introduce us to other customers. We also have Salvador Baila, which is extremely useful, more like from a business perspective. So through his networks, he has opened a lot of doors for us. So, and also through the network from Simula Garage. So I think this combination of having people who actually want something good for you, and want to help you with the experience they have, has been really good for us.
And how did you get in contact with these mentors? Was that from the Gründer Garage? So Simula Garage is the same as Gründer Garage, I think, right?
Yes.
How did you get in contact with these mentors?
So through Pongstart, that's where we get this environment in Halden. So
Right.
that's where we find the mentors that we have, Salvador, and also later on we get now we have the CTO from eSmart Systems. So
So, Keenious, do you have these type of mentors in your daily life?
Yeah, Anders, maybe you can take this one.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, like we're also part of incubator. It's called NORA. It's actually part of the technology transfer office, which is also connected then towards the university. And I just want to echo the advice from Lars here, that getting into this kind of environment where you can like learn from others, share experiences or frustrations, and get some tips and tricks, it's really important to start up. So yeah, we had a question here in the chat about what they should do if they want to start something up. First, maybe verify that your idea holds water, like there is grants to just check with customers and such. And if you decide to like really go for this, then find some kind of environment that can support you and help you.
And you said earlier, Frode, that University of Tromsø is your demanding pilot customer. So what does that mean exactly? Could you elaborate a bit on what that means?
Yeah, sure. I'll just take it. So with demanding, it's also a phrasing that's put in by Innovation Norway. So they call it a krevende kunde. But what that means is we use our project is called an innovation project. So you can Google that. It's on Innovation Norway. It's one of the most, I think it's the one that is given out the most like grants in form of like just sums of money from Innovation Norway, because it's a very effective program. The way it works is that you have to have like a product and you have to have a potential customer, but you don't really have the necessary resources to build the product, to finish it and get it to market. But the customer really wants your product because they see the need for it. So if you can do then, if you get a partner that you kind of have this combination, if they say they're willing to put resources in, usually in form of man hours, to test out your product and give you feedback so that you can develop it so it's made for them, and hopefully it's also transferable to other types of the similar customers, then Innovation Norway will help you with funding parts of your cost of this project. And then you have to have some money on your own, which usually come from private investors. But the effective thing here is you don't start with the investors. You can start with the potential demanding customer and also start with it and talk with Innovation Norway, and you can see if there's possibilities here. And that's exactly what we did. And we saw, oh, this is a really high opportunity now to do this. They're both willing if only we had cash in our bank. That's what we tell the investors, right? And then it's like, yeah, we have this really good deal because we have a really demanding customer and they're willing to put in hours to help us. So they're helping in form of feedback, and it also is really a good way to go into the market, because you can say like, look, we had this challenging customer that really grilled us on things here, and they like it. They ended up buying the product. That means that's the best reference customer we can have, because when we go to another potential customer, we can just talk to University of Tromsø, ask them what they think, right? And they can kind of help sell it in. So it's just a really great program, and you just got to find, I guess, the right customer and talk to them about this potential of a project. And they're a little bit larger projects, but I think they're feasible in the very early stage too.
So if you continue that path, and I will ask Future Ready the same question later. So what about IPR issues? So how do you ensure that you have these rights, and how do you ensure that the customers you talk to, or either Tromsø, does not steal, quote unquote, your idea? Do you have any concerns like that?
That was with the project there, we had to put in a lot of effort into learning the legalities around it, because when they're asking for feedback, when you're building products based on their feedback, and suddenly one of the researchers had an idea of this filtering or whatever, right? And then we go develop it, and it was part of the project. Is that a result of the project? Does the university own any of this yet? And what you actually find out, at least for public companies, and I think most companies actually want this, we said this, and they're actually interested in not owning anything, because they don't want to own 0.001% of something and having to deal with the management around that. So they actually want to make sure that it's in place that they don't own any of the product, and you just have to make sure that it's very specified in contract. We got help from Sons, which part of this deal, which to bring up the incubator, which is really great because they have a partnership with a law office, law firm, and they helped us with it. But yeah, that's kind of it. But giving the IPR stuff, what we also been researching, and I'm not a lawyer, so don't take this as a truth, but it's very difficult to patent any form of AI at all. It's almost impossible because first off, you don't know what other people are running. So if you did patent it, they can just take the code and they can just like make it run on their own service, and you wouldn't really know, and you're too small to do anything about it, right? So it's just basically secrecy that is the way to go about with AI tools.
If I understood you correctly, the AI is in the Microsoft Azure platform, right? You don't run the AI locally, or did I?
Yeah, so it's running on cloud, right? But we're building our own, and we're hosting everything on our own. So we're not using any services from Microsoft Azure. We're just downloading their data set, and then we train models and we deploy them on our own clusters. So you could maybe copyright that or patent it, but then you just give the recipe to everyone else and you have no clue what they're running.
So what is your experience future ready? I'm not sure if Alexander or Barry wants to.
Lars can answer the question.
Okay, so the first we did is that we talked to innovation. You can hear me. So the first thing we did to talk to Innovation Norway, so we get this markedsavklaring. This is 100,000 to kind of make our business plan. So we did that in parallel with when we did the punk start. And then the second thing we did is that we applied for the commercialiseringstilskudd phase 1 and 2. So we get 1.5 million there. That we wrote the application ourselves. And then we start to look into the research, the regionalt forskningsfond, which is linked to the Research Council. And there we were very lucky, or I don't know, maybe not only lucky, but I think the Norwegian government is just fantastic because they have not only that they give us the money, but they also have an advisor who actually is being sponsored by the government to help us to write the application, which is just fantastic. So we had really good experience with that. So we have an advisor help us to write both our application and we write to the regional forskningsfond. So I think, to kind of be aware of all the possibilities that is out there and try to, use that as much as you can. I think that's very important, and take it seriously when you're writing these applications, because you should never underestimate how smart these people for Innovation Norway or the Research Council or the Regional Forskningsfond is really smart people. So, and they really take your business idea and what you're doing very seriously. And they really want to help you, but you need to put in the hours there and the effort to really make it work.
So then the quote I will remember from this talk is the Norwegian government is fantastic. So that's nice. We will tell Anna that you think so. That's good. But what did the university get out of this, Lars or Alexander? So, or Simula in this case.
Simula is by working with us. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So we pay them. So we pay them per hour for working with us. So first of all, they get the money. Second of all, they get to work with a project which is valuable for them as well, because the insights they get from our project, they can use to their own research. So there's both money and also insights from our project.
Right. And is that the same that happens in Tromsø, or do you use the university more, for example, for computational power or storing of data or these type of things?
Ernst, you want to say this?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, sure. So in our collaboration, I think the main part they get out of it is that they are able to form and shape and give input on a new kind of AI tool that they see a big potential in and that can help them out in the future, because they are our customer, right? In our customer group. So they have researchers and students that could benefit from this. So they get to have a say in how it's shaped, and also get to have all the ethics and privacy concerns and all of this built into it. So yeah, I think that's the main part. Do you have anything to add, Frode?
Yeah, so one thing that's also almost obvious is they also get, of course, a discount, which is very normal in these types of projects. So if they think this is something that's going to happen anyway, and they think like, oh, this product is going to come and we want to probably buy it when it releases, if we can help these guys now, we can ask for a good discount and we'll have it cheaper on release, because that's kind of give and take relationship. We're like, okay, they helped us out, we're not going to try to earn all our money on this customer, we rather want them to be really happy about it, and that's going to drive other sales. So there is that is kind of case to case. I think it's more normal for smaller projects, or it depends, but really on project. But we decided to do that because it just felt natural for us to give that form of discount. And also one thing that's very specific for universities, I think, is that they have big like national agendas of like digitalization, innovation, AI. These are big things that they're kind of pushing for, and it is PR for them. It is seeing that, oh, we're focusing on this, we're helping these guys out, we're helping founders from our university. Like, it is a big part of that as well, that they can showcase their interest, and they're actually trying to help some kind by helping out companies like ours. So it is a kind of win-win situations in every kind there. Yeah.
And how much are they helping you outside of Norway? We have this big case now about Grammarly. Most of you have heard about Grammarly. And there's this case that we are not allowed to use it in public sector anymore because they store the data in outside of GDPR, meaning in the United States. And that type of problem might occur when you go outside of the close compounds of Tromsø. Are they helping you in some way in this type of settings as well?
Yeah, so that's actually very recent. We're working on a DPA, so a data processor agreement, which is extremely hard work to do as AI, especially since you're working usually with sensitive data, which is the text, at least for NLP and stuff like that. And we did get feedback that one of our tools we were using called Amplitude for product analytics, which is used by mostly like this and Mixpanel, used by almost every startup to kind of track button clicks and stuff to see how people are actually engaging with your website. We thought that was GDPR compliant because of some reasons, and they told us, no, we cannot. We cannot buy this or use this product if you're using this service, because they have data centers in the United States. So we had to redesign and be like, okay, can we do this then? So we kind of had to figure out we had to self-host it in our own on our own clusters in Ireland. But you have to be aware, though, it's like you said, it is a concern. Like, we can't only take all their feedback and just be like, oh, that's the truth. So we are talking to other universities, both internationally and nationally. So we had like talks with University of Toronto, for example, who has really great like AI labs, and you probably all know about those. And when we bring this up, they all kind of ask the same questions, but of course they're a little bit different. So we kind of went for the good old solution of let's host everything ourselves and let's put it in Ireland, because that's what they're used to, most of them. And let's not use as little amount of other services that we don't understand where the data is being stored, because then we don't have to worry about that. We can just be 100% aware of what we're doing.
Exactly. And then you're ready for international competition. So what about you, Lars? Is your mentors, either you or Alexander, are your mentors helping you also reach international breakthroughs?
We are working with the international companies, so that's our target. So we have one pilot customer with we analyzing the data from Nordea, which is like at least in the Nordic countries, and we also will approach other big banks. So we are going for customers which is natural international. So yeah, so that's our target. So when we are working with customers, we try to go for customers which has international potential.
Okay, very good. So we're getting close to an end. So I'd like to end this the way we always end the NORA Startup webinar. And this is to ask the question, so what do you think NORA Startup should be in your future? So let's assume we're 2 or 3, maybe 5 years into the future. What has NORA Startup helped you with? So if we start with Future Ready. So what do you think NORA Startup could be of help to you in any way?
Maybe you can answer that, Alex.
I will, but I'm having some problems with my internet. So I'll give a very quick one. So I think that well, an organization like NORA is very, very important, because I think it highlights that you can actually build AI-based startups here in Norway. I think the sort of the learning and the sharing across building the community, I think that's really important. That's also why we applied to become members of the NORA startup and milieu. So for us, I think it's very important, and maybe we can also help give back. So for us, it's about building the awareness, helping each other. That's what we are looking forward to.
Building and sharing experience. What about you, Keenious? NORA startup in your future. How does it look like?
So we always think it's always great to collaborate, of course, and share ideas, and that's probably one of the great things about NORA, because I would say we get a lot of inspirations from United States, from online. That's really what I learn a lot from. I'll be honest. I'm reading blogs. I'm not looking specifically in Norway usually, because, well, Norway doesn't have a big history of launching big startups and these kind of tech things. So if we almost try to purposely gravitate away from it in some cases, just to kind of make sure that we're not thinking wrong about things. But I think what would be great with NORA is that there are many things that would, of course, be very specific to Norway and also things that would be better suited at solving and making different products that other countries can't do. Like, for instance, isn't SpaceMaker, if I remember, are using like public data sets that other countries, other companies, other places couldn't use. And if we could figure out, maybe NORA could be a place where we really get an expertise in understanding what is different about Norway and what kind of expertises can we build that is different from the other countries and different, that we can maybe leverage the Norwegian way of being more open about the data and all the support we can get from these great resources and projects and grants, and maybe specialize it and figure out like our identity in a sense. And that would probably be the greatest, because that would be useful for everyone, really.
Great, I agree. So if NORA could help understand what is the key aspects of Norwegian culture so that we can build the strong AI companies that are sold for billions in the United States, I think we can deem it a success. And if you want to be part of that community, all of those who listen to you, go to nora.ai and you register to become a startup member. So we thank all the participants today, both Frode Oppdal and Anders Rapp from Keenious, and Alexander Berry and Lars Kolflot from Future Ready. There's a lot of questions we didn't have time to answer. We'll store them and try to answer them at a later stage. And for the rest of you, we will tune in next week for a NORA webinar and in 2 weeks for the next NORA startup webinar. Have a nice weekend, all of you.